everybody, I'm Victoria from Cosy Country here in partnership with Cosy Owl. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make bleeding heart wax belts. So let's get going.
So let's run through what we've got here. I have 800 grams of soy pillow wax. I also have my 50ml Champagne and Roses fragrance oil. I have a red dye along with a clamshell. I have my silicone mould, which is the heart shapes. I also have a pouring jug here, along with my melting jug and 2 wooden spoons, a electric weighing scale, and my thermometer. So firstly, I'm going to measure out the wax for my clamshell. The clamshell that I have holds roughly 78 grams of wax, so I'll round it up to 80 grams here. And I'll get that one measured out first and foremost. Once your wax is all measured out, just pop it onto a medium heat. I'm just going to put some boiling water into the bottom of this pan, pop it onto the medium heat, and then I'll be able to put my melting jug in there. For now, I'm just going to let it melt all the way through. This is only a small measurement of wax, so it shouldn't take too long. It should only take roughly 10 minutes or so. But I'll keep coming back and giving it a real good stir around just to make sure it melts all the way through, and that'll help speed up the process too. Once the wax is melted all the way through, I'm just going to take my thermometer and double check what temperature we're at. I want my wax to be somewhere around the 60 to 65 degrees mark before I start adding my dye. And just here you can see it's just up to 80, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to pop it to one side with no heat on, and I'll just let that cool down for about 5 minutes or so. And then once I come back, you can see it's cooled right down to about the 54 degrees mark, and I'm just going to pop my dye in. So I'm only going to take a couple of pinches out of here. Like I said before, this is quite a small measurement of wax, so you don't need too much dye in here. So once that's popped in, I'll just pop it on a really low heat just to maintain a little bit of heat in there, and I'll just give it a real good stir around just to make sure that the dye does melt all the way through the wax. You don't want any little blotchy bits or any clear patches, so just give it a real good stir through. Once you're happy with your wax, make sure you double check the temperature, because the ideal pouring temperature for this soy wax is roughly 55 degrees. So I'm going to go straight in here and just pour it straight into my clamshell. There's no need to do any topping up or anything like that, because we will be chopping it up. But for now, I'm just going to leave it to set so I can move on to the next steps. So whilst that's setting, I'm going to measure out 400 grams for my individual melts. I'll have a little bit of wax left over, which is fine because I'll just remelt it and get some more of these beautiful bleeding hearts made. So I'm measuring out 400 grams here, ready for my individual melts. All measured up, I'm going to repeat the process that I did last time, pop some boiling water into the bottom of my pan and get to melting. So I'm just going to leave this to melt. It's going to be a little bit longer than before because it's a bigger measurement, but as before, I'll just keep coming back and giving it a real good stir around just to try and help the process speed up a little bit. But it will take roughly 15 to 20 minutes for this to melt all the way through, but I will just keep coming back and giving it a good check over. Now my wax is melted all the way through, I'm just going to double check the temperature just as I did before. This is where my fragrance oil is going to be going straight into. So I'm not going to be putting any dye or anything like that in here. So I want to be around the 60 degrees mark before I start adding my fragrance oil in. And as you can see, I'm over that. I'm at 80 degrees here, so I just need this wax to cool down. So I'll take it off the heat just as I did before for around 10 minutes, and I'll come back and double check the temperature. And then when we get to 60 degrees, I'll start popping in my fragrance oil. And just for this measurement of wax, I'm popping in 30 millilitres of the fragrance oil. So after giving my wax a really good stir around, I've also transferred it into a pouring jug straight from my melting jug. And I just wanted to put it into this jug for a more precise pour, because at this stage I only want to be pouring about halfway up the shape in these moulds, because I need to have a little bit of extra room to be able to put the centre in and then pour over the top as well, which I will show you in the next steps. So just get these poured around 55 degrees, and then you'll want to leave them to set for roughly 15 minutes, just so they start to set but they're not set all the way through. And I will show you why in the next steps. So back to the clamshell. Now my clamshell has been left for at least an hour or so now. It just pops straight out of the clamshell and it is set all the way through as well. So it's not too soft to be breaking up. So I'll just break it up into its little cubes and then I'll take my pastry cutter. You can use a knife as well, whatever you've kind of got to hand, but I just find this pastry cutter nice and easy to use, and I like to keep it separate from my kitchen utensils too. So I'm just going to use this to chop up into little chunks, and I'm going to chop the whole thing up into all these little chunks, and then I've got plenty left over so that I can remelt my other wax down and make some extra melts. So as you can see, they're just in nice little chunks here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one and I'm going to just press them into the center of these molds. So this is why we needed to fill it up to about halfway, because we needed the room to be able to put these little chunks in, and then I'll be able to pour over the top of these as well. So I'm just pushing them down into the melt just so that they stay in place. I don't want them to be trying to move or bleed a little bit prematurely whilst I pour the next bit of wax over the top. So just keep pushing them down and just make sure the chunks aren't too big, because you don't want them to be sticking out of the sides or out of the top either. So once they're all in, I'm just going to come back with my wax and pour straight over the top. So I'm pouring again around 55 degrees. That is just nice and cool to be able to go over the top of these melts. And this is the wax with the fragrance oil in. So it will completely conceal these little red bits in the middle, so they are completely hidden, so it's like a little surprise in the middle. So just pour straight over the top of them, and once you're done with that, you want to leave them overnight before doing anything else with them. You don't want to unmold them too early, so just leave them overnight to set. So now these have been left for 24 hours, I'm just going to take them out of the mold, and they're nice and easy to get out of these silicone molds. And you can see here that they are completely white. You can't see the little red bits in between. Maybe on one or two of them you can, but it's not an issue. So I'm just going to pop these straight out of there. They literally unmold so easy, and it's quite satisfying as well to be popping them out. So I'll just get all these out, and now that they've been left 24 hours, I can pop them straight onto my melter. So I'm going to put them on a melter and show you how they work, and you'll see them bleeding just nicely. So they are like a little surprise inside, and I hope you enjoy.